this morning, that would be awesome. Thank you so much. Ready to go ahead? Okay, let's talk about golden calves. It always comes out that the golden calf and the Oscars almost always coincide in some way. It's kind of a funny thing. I mean, I'm serious. Like it's a week from now, right? Sometimes it's actually the weekend of the sort of the golden calf. So let's jump into the golden calf. Now you'll see on. By the way, the proximity of the screen and like the ability to see it's almost like it almost felt today like why do we even have to print anything? I mean, I know I'm a big fan of having a Siddur and also having text on the screen, but some of the text in the printout will be fainter because it was printed in black and white. But you can see that on the screen those words are in a different colored font, and so to like kind of follow along with the words that are similar based on like a color or font situation, if that makes sense to you. So you can look up or you can look on the sheet. Okay. Vayar Ha'am, beginning of chapter 32 in the book of Exodus. This is the chapter of Torah. If Kitisa is we're talking about this the last couple of weeks, and I think every year, I remind people that the last 5 portions of the book of Exodus are essentially 15 chapters. It begins in chapter 25. Then we have 15 chapters of Tabernacle. And those 15 chapters are divided not evenly, but into 5 portions, known as Truma Tetzaveh, Kitisa Vayakal B'Kude. And the center of that, and you'll also, as I say every year, there's a chiastic structure. So chiasm in poetry, A, B, B, A, kind of like these fragments that mirror each other, and often the center of the point of, or let's say the technology of chiasm is to, in some way, highlight both. It's obviously a pattern. It's a pattern that reflects and mirrors, but also brings hyper focus into the center of the chiastic structure. So here there's a C. So it's A B B A, but the C is kitisa. Kitisa or KTC, the C of the ABBA, is this portion of the 5. So Truma Tetzaveh, Vayakal B'Kude are all 4 of those are about the tabernacle. And the middle, or the C element of this chiasm also has tabernacle as well. There are elements of the tabernacle that are spoken about in the beginning. But then chapter 32 is kind of like the C of the C. It's like the C inside of the C. Chapter 32 is really what the whole thing is about, which is the building of the golden calf. So at the heart of this tabernacle project is this idolatrous moment brought to you by WAZ and Avodah Zarah 24/7. This is it. Vayara Am, and the people saw Ki Boshesh Moshe lered min ha'ar vayikahel ha'am al Aaron vayomru elav kum aseh lanu Elohim, and the people saw that Moshe was shamefully late, I guess, in some ways I've seen it translated. Boshesh is from the word busha. He's shamefully late in coming down from the mountain. When was he up at the mountain? Anybody remember where chapter 32 is getting this? Because it's not in the prior, from chapter 25 when the Truma tabernacle business begins, there's no mention of Moses going up to the mountain. Where was he up on the mountain? In chapter 24, at the end of chapter 24, when there's Na'aseh v'Nishma, right, at the ratification of the covenant, Moshe goes up to the mountain, he's up there for 40 days and 40 nights, and then we get Truma interrupts that scene, which of course leads people to believe that this actually should be where chapter 25 begins. Really, this is chapter 32 and chapter 25 should be switched or pushed, right? Chapter 24 really should be what's going on, and that's in that universe of thought that the tabernacle was a response to the golden calf. So they see that he's taken a long time. Wow, Moshe, what are you doing up there? He doesn't call, he doesn't write. Mel Brooks comes out and says, you don't call, you don't write. Vayikahel ha'am al Aaron, and the people, they congregate around Aaron. Poor Aaron. It's like, okay, they're looking for somebody. Like, okay, there he is. We were looking for you. You're the brother. Have you heard from him? What's going on? But they don't say that. They say, Vayomer Lav Kum, get up. Interesting. Get up. Where is he? Why does he have to get up? Like, Kum, arise. Sirloin of beef. Arise. Arise. Kum, Aseh Lanu Elohim. Make for us Elohim, a God. That's why it's highlighted, because it's a very strange gods, Elohim. But Asher Yelechu Lifanenu, that will go before us. Kizeh Moshe Aish, this Moshe guy, Asher Elanu Me'eretz Mitzrayim, who took us out of Egypt, Lo Yadana, Mehayalo. We do not know what has become of him, or Lo Yadana. Whenever you see Lo Yada, it's a bad sign in the Bible, right? It's like Lo Yada, I don't know. It's like when God comes to Cain and Hevel, says, "What happened to Hevel? Abel, your brother." He says, "Lo Yadati, I don't know." Really? Lo Yadana. It's like a inversion of something. It's good to know, right? And in the Bible, it's not good not to know, or to act as if you don't know. Who knows? I don't know. Vayomer Alehem Aaron, and Aaron says to them, so that's what, now what would you say if you were Aaron? Any Aaronites here, what would you say?
Why don't you just chill out for a few minutes and we'll talk later.
Totally, right? That's like, come on, Aaron, chill out, relax. I don't know where he is either, but he's done this before, and I know him since he's a kid, and he kind of went and lived in, the Pharaoh's house for a little while, and he likes to run away. He's got a place to go to. He went on a fishing trip. He went golfing, something. But no, now Aaron goes, Parkun nizmei hazahav. Perek, dissemble. The farek in Hebrew is to take apart, but take off your nose rings, your golden nose rings, right? Asher bi'oznein l'sheichem, and that are in the ears of your wives. Clearly, all men, I guess here. B'nechem, your boys and your girls. Boys also wearing rings at the time. It's come back in fashion, in strongly. Bring it to me. So great. And so all of the Am, Kol Ha'am, took off their rings that were in their ears. Why does the ears have to keep repeating? And maybe we'll see that a little bit later. Right? And they brought them to Aaron. Vayikach miyadam, he takes it from their hands. All of it? From there? Okay. Don't be too hyperliteral, Ingber. It just means that he received it. It must have been a lot of gold from the whole nation. That's a lot of gold. Okay. Takes it from their hands. Vayatzar oto b'cheret, and he puts it, he fashions it in a cheret, which is like a mold, I guess. A cheret is it's the only time the word appears in the Bible, is here. A mold. This, by the way, is interesting. I once gave a sermon on the holidays about this word. The modern word for regret is charata. The rabbinic word for regret is charata. It's not really the same as this, but it's the same root. The only place it appears in the Torah is this, vayicharei. Usually, regret is vayinachem. Anyway, so he fashions it with regret, or he fashions it in a mold. Vayasehu egel masechan. He makes it into an egel, a calf of molten, like a metal calf, masecha. Vayomru, and then who says? Not he doesn't say, but then they say, Vayomru, El Elohecha Yisrael. This is your God Israel, Asher Elucha Me'eretz Mitzrayim, who took you out of the land of Egypt. Vayar and Vayar Aaron. Now, in verse 1, the nation saw, or the people saw, and now in verse 5, Aaron sees. Vayar Aaron. Vayiven Mizbeach Lefanav. And he makes an altar, he builds an altar, the word Vayiven, very different Vayas, like he made. Here is he builds. Vayiven Mizbeach Lefanav. He makes an altar in front of him. Of whom? Him? It. Because an altar, why do we have to need to know where the altar is? But he puts it in front of, could have just said, Vayiven Aaron Mizbeach. Right? But he sees something and then he builds something. Vayikra Aaron Vayomar Chag LaAdonai Machar. And Aaron says, Chag Ladonai Machar. There's going to be a holiday not for Elohim, but for Adonai, for Yudei Vavei, tomorrow. Let's make a party tomorrow. And they woke up the next day. So it's like interesting, right? Like what's going on here? Let's make a party tomorrow. He wakes up. They wake up the next morning. They woke up early. And they offer up these different offerings and ola and shlamim. Right? They offer one up. They bring another. And now they sit. Le'echol v'shato. They sit to eat and to drink. And then, like the word kum, which appeared earlier with Aaron, arise, now they arise, vayakumu, they rise up, litzachek, to dance, I guess. This is the way they translate it here. But the word litzachek here, it's like, doesn't mean to dance, or it could mean to dance, it could mean to get, to laugh, it could mean to be frivolous, it could mean to be licentious. I mean, there are various usages of the word tzchok in the book of Genesis. Right, the tzchok of the laughter of Sarah, the laughter of Isaac. There's also Isaac and Rebecca doing some tzchoking with when they were down in Egypt, right? And Pharaoh sees, right? Okay, so make us a god. There are some who write that it's make us supernal beings. If you look, you go down, scroll down a little bit. Caroline, yeah, right there. Good. Cast in a mold. You have a number of different interpretations here, right? There is a sexual connotation that I brought here from Genesis 26:8, right? So there's definitely dancing going on, and that's only in light of verse 19, which is later on when Moses comes down from the mountain, he sees them dancing. But if you're intertextually wanting to know what the word here for laughter is, or dance, it's really something a bit more risque, a little bit more like Burning Man-esque, if you will. Okay, let's turn the page, or scroll. Now, what's happening up on top of the mountain as it's happening, and then we're gonna get back to this, okay? We're gonna read this quickly, because I want to get to the Midrashim about what's going on in various minds. How are you guys doing so far? It's like hitting the right note. This is pretty interesting. Okay. All right. It's in the Torah. I wish I could take credit for it. It's not mine. Vaydaber Adonai Moshe, lech reid. Now God says to Moshe, go down. Raid, go down. Like he went up, now he's got to go down. Everything is down, right? Stock market is down, the people are down. There's a whole descent here that it's like the directionality of the people, they've hit a new low. Hishiches Amcha. Asher Elisa Me'eretz Mitzrayim. Now this is fascinating. What does God do here? Your people that you took out of Egypt have gone and made, they did something horrible. So God distances God's self from the people and gives and imagines them as Moshe as people. Right? Yeah, right with me? Your people. It's like your son is acting out. Your kid, go to school. Your son, the one that you birthed, is having a hard time. Saru maher min hadech asher tzivitim. They turned quickly from the path that I had commanded them. Right? Saru. It's like a very Moshe word. Asura nave. Moshe was the one who turned from the path that he was on and found the burning bush, and now the people have also turned. They turn quickly. That's the thing with them. They turn quickly, which can also be a good thing. They turn quickly, right? They can turn quickly back. If they turn quickly one way, they can turn the other way. It's not exactly the way that God usually imagines them. You'll see in a moment he thinks that they're a big pain in the neck. They made for themselves a molten calf, and they bowed to it, which, by the way, doesn't say that they bowed to it. But if God's saying it, then maybe it's true. That's for sure true that they definitely offered offerings. We don't know to whom they were offering the offerings, right? Seems like Aaron had a bit of a different idea. And they said, though, this is what they did say. God's quoting it back. God clearly read the text before. God has spies down with the Israelites. He's getting good juicy information on the ground. This is a quote from them. They said, "This is your God who took you out of Egypt." And then God says to Moshe, I've seen this people, they're a pain in the neck. They're really difficult, stiff-necked people. And now please leave me alone, or let me be, so that I can get really angry, my nose can get flared up and fiery at them. I'll destroy them. And I'll sweeten the pot. I'll make you into a great nation. Verse 11, Vaychal Moshe Pnei Adonai Elohav, and Moshe, we don't know what this means. Vaychal Moshe, we don't really have any idea what that word means. It means something about caressing or appeasement, but it has to do, it literally means, and Moshe caressed God's face. His God. Vayomer, his God, right? Not their God, his God. Vayomer, he says to him, Lama Adonai cherabcha b'yamecha. Depending on how you read this, it really depends on the character of Moshe. Like, is he a good parent? He's saying, no. Lama Adonai cherabcha b'yamecha. Why are you getting so angry with your people? He now puts it back onto God, right? It's not my people, it's your people. You're the one who took them out. Asher Otzeisem Eretz Yisrael. You were the one, God, who took them out of Egypt with your great and strong arm and extended arm. Like he knows how to talk to God, right? Right? He's appeasing God. And then not only that, it's not only that they're your people and that you're so strong, but also Lama Yomru Mitzrayim Limor. Why would, and then the Egyptians will say, that God intended evilly. What a cruel and capricious God. You'd bring them out here and then you destroy them in the mountains. And to completely wipe them off from the face of the earth. A lot of face, right? Losing face, facing in front of. Shuv mecharon apecha, return from the anger of your nostrils, or in other words, your rage. And regret or turn back from the evil that you had in mind for your people. Zechor Avraham, Yitzchak, don't just do it for them. Remember, you made a promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, your servants who did serve you, Asher Nishba'ta lehem bach. You swore by your own name. Look at what about the promise. You told them, I'm going to make your seed numerous, and they're going to be like the stars of the heavens. Right? And you also promised them this land, and that you would give it to them as an inheritance. And all of this did the job it was supposed to do. And God regretted, or God turned back from the evil that God had said he would do to the people, to his people. So it begins with, the whole piece begins with God saying, it's your people, Amecha, your people, Moses. And by the end, Moshe has completely turned the whole thing around, which is amazing, right? This whole piece, it's like we read it every year, we read it multiple times a year on fast days and so on. It's a really amazing moment where essentially Moshe has talked God down from the brink and rejected God's desire to give Moshe, it's going to be based on you going forward and so on, right? Now, Moshe turns around and he comes down from the mountain. Moshe comes down, he turns. By the way, just to note all of the turning that happened in this piece too. Like they turned quickly from the path that they said that they would do, and now God also turned. In other words, God also is one who can be turned quickly. Like it seems to be a quality that both the children of Israel and God share. Like Moshe was able to talk God out of his anger. It could be, of course, God was inviting Moshe to do that, just as Abraham in chapter 15 is invited by God. In chapter 18 is invited by God to argue for the sake of the Sodom and Amorah. Kind of like the Torah tells us God could have, of course, just done this without letting Moshe know, but he wanted, as it were, Moshe's partnership. Now, Moshe comes down, and he has these two tablets in his hand. And the Torah goes out of his way to tell us what the tablets were like, because we've never seen these tablets before, right? And these tablets are unbelievable. They're like Fabergé eggs. Like they are, the Torah goes out of its way to say that they're written on both sides, which is impossible, right? They're miracle tablets. They're really miraculous. They're like written from both sides. It means that how is that possible? Right? It must be they're miracles. Verse 16, V'aluchos Maaseh Elohim, and then the Torah tells us they are godly tablets. Right? It's amazing to see the phrase Maaseh Elohim Hema because they are the work of God, and that's very much like the story of the golden calf, right? The word used, Elohim Maaseh, to make, like Moshe, while the people are making a golden calf below, and the language used is the word Elohim and la'asot, to make, God's making tablets above, and the language kind of connects the two objects, right? This idol below, and this quote-unquote divine Fabergé egg, these luchos, right? And it's Michtav Elohimu, it's like divine scripts. Charuz al luchos, they're carved into the luchot. By the way, the connection is another linguistic connection here. The word to be engraved, charut al luchot, that is engraved on the tablets. The word cheret before, which was the mold that they placed it in. Remember I said it can connect to the modern word for regret. It's a homonym. Cheret and cheret, charut engraving and charut mold. It's clear that they're pretty much the same word. There's a tet and a taf difference, but they're essentially the same elements, right? And so there's a kind of a difference between the golden calf that's made with the cheret and the miraculous tablets that are made with a charut, which is an engraving. But this engraving, like tattoos, engraving, writing, it's all amazing. And then Vayishma Yoshua kol ha'am b're'o vayomer el Moshe kol milchama b'machneh. I hear the sound of a war in the camp. Vayomer ein kol anos gvur ve'ein kol anos chalusha kol anos anochi shomea. Moses says, no, that's not the sound of the tune of triumph or the sound of the tune of defeat. It's the sound of song that I hear. In other words, it's not. I don't hear war. I hear a party. Like that's not. That's rave music. And when Moshe comes close to the camp, Vayar es ha'egel, like we're back to seeing, right? He sees the calf, right? Remember the people saw, Vayar ta'am ki boshesh Moshe, they read that the people saw that Moshe was taking a long time coming, and then Aaron saw, right? Vayar, and that's when he built the altar. Now this is the third act of seeing. He sees them, and he sees the mecholot, the dancing, which that word we had already with Miriam after the splitting of the Red Sea. Vayichar af Moshe. Now Moshe also knows why God was so angry. Like Moshe is also angry. He throws down the tablets and he breaks them at the foot of the mountain. And now he's going to break. Everything gets broken. Everything that was made with engraving now gets broken and destroyed. He takes the golden calf that they made and he burns it in fire, and then he grounds it until it's really fine. And then he mixes it together. He spreads it with water, stews it with water, and makes the Israelites drink this kind of golden calf smoothie. Okay. Vayomer Moshe el Aaron. Now Moshe and Aaron have a word. This is amazing. The Torah gives us this conversation. Me asa lecha ha'am hazeh. What did this nation do to you? Like, how do you hear him saying that? Does he say it like with empathy, is he chastising him? Is he shocked? Is he incredulous? He's like, what could they possibly have offered you? Like, God offered me the whole thing, and I turned it down. What did they do to you? And by the way, the term asa here, what did they do to you? What did they make of you? Is exactly the same verb used for the making of the golden calf. In other words, how powerful are these people that they can make they can make a lot of things. They can make a golden calf, and they can make you become alien to yourself. They have a power as almost sorcerers of sorts, right? What's this spell that they put on you? Ki heveita alav chata'ah gdolah, that you have brought such a great sin upon them. You brought on them. Alav is, first, On them, it's like because the people are here are like the second person, like on. It seems like on him. That you put alav is on him, but mir here means probably on them because they're not in the plural. It could have been alehem. That would be kiveta alehem chata agdola. It's interesting. Don't be angry with me. So clearly he was angry. Atayadata, you know, there's the word, right? You know. Remember before who didn't know? Right? They didn't know where he was, but you know, Moshe. You know this people. Kivirahu. They are bent on evil. Wow, Aaron, come on. Tisk tisk. I mean, really? Throwing them under the bus? You were the one that was late. Why did you tell Moshe that he was late and that's what was going on? Come on, he's your younger brother. I know he's powerful, but like, just tell him the truth. But Yomeru, they said to me, Aseh lanu Elohim, make for us a God, asher yilchu lefanir, that would go before us. Ki zeh Moshe ish asher ha'elanu ne'eretz Yisrael lo yadanu mehayalo. So there he quotes it all in full. So at least there, he's telling them that Moshe, don't. It's not like you're innocent here, maybe, or like this is these are the circuit. Va'omar lahem, I said to them, Ni zahav yitbarku vayitnuli. Whoever has gold, let them remove it and give to me. And then va'ashlicheu ba'esh, and I threw it into the fire. Va'yetzei galazen, I threw it into the fire, and out came this, the golden calf. Wow. Okay. Let's see. We're going to stop there. Let's look at some midrashim on this. Okay? Let's look at what the rabbis did with this. Right? It's first source, Vayikra, Rabbah. What was Aaron thinking? I mean, we'll get to the people in a second, but what is Aaron thinking? Rabbi Berechi b'shem Rabbi Abba bar Kahana patar kraya be'aram. Rabbi Berechi said in the name of Rabbi Abba bar Kahana, expounding on the verse about Aaron, B'sha'ash asu Yisrael oto ma'aseh, at the moment, in the hour when the Israelites did that act, they don't even say it, but chila halchu etzel Chor. In the beginning, they went to Chor. Who was Chor? Does anybody know who Chor was? Well, the real Chor, please stand up. Chor.
Miriam's husband.
Okay, but where does he appear in the text earlier? In the text, he's one of the. He's holding up Moses' arms, right? Aaron and Hur, when they were fighting against the Amalekites, right? When the arms of Moses would go down, they would lose. When the arms would go up, and Moshe, of course, it's hot. It's like the Guinness Book of World Records. He's going to hold it up for like a couple weeks, and Hur is there holding up his arms. So Hur is this character. And the beginning says these rabbis, they went to Hur. You don't see this in the text. Amrulo, but they said to him, apparently this is what they said to him, Kum aseh lanu Elohim. In other words, it doesn't say in the text that they said to Aaron, get up, arise. It just said that they went, I mean, if we look back at the text, it's kind of interesting. Let's look back at the text. Right? The text begins with, they gathered around Aaron, Vayomru elav kum aseh lanu Elohim. Now, that to me is pretty clear that they said to Aaron, that the one to him is Aaron. I mean, that's the simple meaning of the verse, right? So what is this rabbi saying that verse, arise, is said not to Aaron, who's the immediate subject, to someone else? Maybe because it should have said to him. Maybe it should have just said, and they said. Why do they have to say to him? Why not just say Vayomru? And they said, why to him? Maybe. I mean, to me, it just sounds normal, but to them, maybe the reason is that, why would that, it seems superfluous. So they said, Vakum aseh lanu Elohim, they said to him, make for us a God, Kevan shalosh amalahan, but he did not agree to do it. They amdu alav v'haragu, they killed him. They killed Hur. This is the rabbis, right?
Rabbi?
Yes.
Is there like a textual source? I'm remembering like when Moshe goes up the mountain, he says, if you have a problem, go to Hur and to Aaron. So like maybe the implication
Right, in chapter 24? Yeah, you're right.
Maybe the implication is like they're only going to Aaron. Something must have happened to Hur.
Ah, nice.
Something like that.
Yeah, maybe that's good. Maybe back in chapter 24, where we're told like it was like things were left in the hands of Aaron and Hur. I have to check that. Maybe somebody who's online will also check it. But I think that plus maybe in a moment, there's like they're clearly stretching something here. I mean, the text reads fluently without this, and there are other places in the text where there's no need to search for a character that's not mentioned again or whatever it is. It's not. But for the rabbis, this is a way out of a big problem, right? Aaron is really problematic in this source, in the simple source. But now with this subplot, which is not clearly indicated in the text, but the rabbis are now stretching into the white space around the letters, and even reading a verse in Jeremiah chapter 2 in its light, Gam b'knafayach nimsu udam, that even in your wings, in your side, you have found blood, and that's, if you look at the source, you can go forward to see the actual source from Jeremiah 2:34, right? Where moreover on your garments is found the lifeblood of the innocent poor. You did not catch them breaking in, yet despite all these things, right? So, Gam b'knafayach nimsu udam, Jeremiah says, even in your garments, or here knaf can also mean like in the side people, the people who are the wingmen, there was blood found. Nafshot oy evyonim nikiim, the lifeblood of the innocent poor. Lo b'machteret mitzatim, that you didn't catch them when they were trying to break in, but rather ki al kol ele, for all of these things, and that's a key term. Ele Elohecha Yisrael. It was because of the ele, right? These are your gods. So the rabbis are reading a fragment from Jeremiah 2 to implicate a sub-story where Aaron watches Hur stand up to the mob and get killed, right? And then he decides he better figure out a better way, right? Right? Ki gam b'knafayach nimsu udam, if you're still with me in this source. Zeu damo shel Hur, this is the blood of Hur. Lo b'machteret mitzatim ki al kol ele al asher asu ele Eloh Yisrael. V'achar kach, right? This, right? You did not catch him breaking in, yet in all these things were done to your God, O Israel, right? This is the meaning of Elah, your God, these ones. And then what happened? They went to him and they said, now you should go make for us a God. And as soon as he heard that, he got scared. That is the meaning of This is the meaning of verse 5 in the same story where Aaron saw. What did he see? Because what does it mean that he saw? He saw what happened to Hur. Right? He saw what happened to Hur, and so he built a mizbech lefanav. He made an altar in front of him, in front of it. He was afraid of that which had been sacrificed in front of him, meaning Hur became a sacrifice. Amar Aaron Ma'asa Rehargos as Hur Shayan Navi. They killed Hur, who was a prophet. Ashav Imorgim Osi Shanikoim Miskayim Alema Mikra Shekasuv in Yarek Bamikdash Adonai Kohen V'Navi Umiyad Hein Golim. Now, this is obviously, when you're looking at midrashic sources that are built hundreds of years, thousands of years after the source text, right? They're reimagining Aaron as somebody who has access to the whole canon. Aaron in the desert also knows what the verse in Lamentations, which is much, much later after the destruction of the temple. But he's saying, if they fulfill the verse, which is the verse from the book of Lamentations much later on, and the verse says that they killed a priest and a prophet even in my sanctuary, that would be exile. They wouldn't be able to enter the land. So Aaron now sacrifices his own integrity for the sake of the Jewish people so they're not guilty of the sin predicted later on in Jewish history. You see what's happening here? You see this move? That's source number one. What is Aaron thinking? You tell me what Aaron is thinking in source number one. What's he thinking? Come on, zoom it. Come on, you guys are not usually. Come on. What's he thinking?
It's better for him to make this golden calf than to let the people of Israel rise up against him and commit like a grievous sin.
Better me than that. In other words, it's for your own good. I mean, I'm doing it for you. I would otherwise fight with you. I know that you're this is not a good idea. At least let me try to figure out, a way to work with this. Otherwise, I will be killed, right? And I'm not afraid to die. But if what will happen to you if you kill me is that you will then not be able to enter the land. This is kind of an interesting move, right? So in this project, they're trying to understand who is to blame. Aaron seems completely guilty. There's no way out. It's like the evidence. This is amazing. This is like those videos of the guilt of the law enforcement in Minnesota. Sorry, I'm not being political. Like you have like evidence, but like there's a way out. If you look at like the rabbis are doing everything here to try to forgive Aaron. It can't be that Aaron is guilty. It must be something else, right? And so they're going to read this way, and in some way also it softens. I mean, it does soften it to a bit to imagine that Aaron is that this horror business. You can kind of feel for Aaron. It's a little bit scary. Okay, yeah.
At risk of reading something into it that might not be there.
Which is what the
seems like-
rabbis just did.
Well-
You're like,
Well, it seems like Aaron's kind of taking on like the mark of Cain here, whereas like if Aaron and Hur were previously holding up Moshe's arms to fight the Amalekites, that in him taking that on, he's like you said, like buying the Israelites time to not.
Well, we didn't get to that piece yet. We haven't gotten to get to that. Let's look at that. That's the next piece, right? That's the next piece, which is buying them time. Let's look at that one, okay?
But the scapegoat is a very Aaron behavior, right? This other thing will take on the sins of the other thing, and therefore I'll do it on behalf of.
Yes, the later Aaron, like the priesthood, as it were.
The priesthood,
Right, the priesthood.
It's a priestly thing.
It is a priestly thing to do. It is the function of Aaron to try to find a way to where the Israelites are not guilty, right? And so that is of a piece with who he later becomes, read back into this moment. Like, I'm only being the priest, right? The priest is supposed to find a way out for him. That's good, and we're going to get to that in a second.
I think his behavior can reasonably be explained like this. But,
Sure.
he also lied to Moshe.
Right.
Where he said...
I threw it in.
And it just came out.
It just came out, right.
So it's a less grievous...
And not only that, the text will tell us in the Torah, as we come to the close of this piece, the text will say that God will punish the people for having made, for the calf they made and Aaron made. In other words, it separates Aaron out. At the very end of the chapter, it says, and Aaron made it too. So there's no doubt that Aaron is involved in making this. But the rabbis it's just, how could it be? Like, how could Aaron do this, right? So here's another well-known text. Davar acher, bottom of page 5. Aaron, what did Aaron see? Mara'u imbonin, Mara'ah, what did he see? Because everybody's bothered by this, and he saw business, right? Why tell us that? Because it's clear that what he built was related to what he saw. Now, what he saw could have just been that they had said, this is your God, Israel, right? But Mara'ah, im bonin him also, ze mevit shwor, v'ze even, v'nebzes melachtam kala b'vas achas. מתוך שאני בונה also, אני מסעצר במלאכתי ורבנו משה ומבהיר על עבודה זרה. Right? He says, listen, if they build it, right, then each one is going to take a long time. Right? Another large time, and they will finish building the idol in one, they'll do it quickly, right? If I build it, then I can delay my work and give time for our teacher Moshe to come down the mountain and then destroy this idol worship. Right? He's buying time, right? That's the model, he's buying time. If I build it, I can build it in the name, and also if I'm involved in building it, then I can build it in the name of the Holy One, blessed be He, God. Therefore it's written, Aaron called and said, this shall be, therefore Aaron Vayikra, he called out and said, let there be a festival for God tomorrow. It's not written a festival to the calf tomorrow, but rather a festival to God. So what's the second mode of Aaron's innocence? What's he trying to do?
Fend off the mob.
He's just fend off the mob. Until if I can hold them back long enough, then Moshe will come down. Moshe will know how to deal with this. I don't really know how to deal with this. Wait till Moshe comes back, right? It's delay, right? So in this model, Aaron, builds an altar, and he also makes the altar for the name of God. So in that way, he's also, he's softening their idolatrous impulses, and he kind of thinks, okay, at least if I do it, it'll be. I can do it in a way that it will look like I'm building something. I'm guilty, but I'm like I'm involved in subterfuge.
He's the peacemaker.
He's the
He
peacemaker.
always has been.
And Aaron is the peacemaker. He always, and this is his role as a peacemaker. He doesn't want to fight with them. He wants to find a way. He's not going to check. Moshe will be able to get angry with them, but Aaron can't be angry with them, can he? Like if Moshe has all the anger in the world, Aaron has none of it, right? So everybody gets angry in this story. God gets angry. Moshe gets angry, and Aaron is busy trying to figure out a way
He's a
to be. He's a
diplomat.
yes man. He's a diplomat. He wants to see the good in them. He's the priest. Okay, what's the third? Let's look at the third model. Vayar Aaron, what did Aaron see? Vayikarabath. Amar Aaron. If they build it, hasirchon nitla behen. If they build it, the sin will be upon them. But it would be better for the sin to hang on me and not the Israelites. This is very, right, Aaron-esque, very, very Jesus-y, it has a certain sacrifice, right? This is what Thomas was saying earlier, like this is very much his role. Let it be on me. And so then Rabbi Abba, whose name is Rabbi Abba, has a Abba in the name of Abba. There's a parable. Again, it's great that the name of the character of the rabbi is Abba, and then he's going to give a parable about a father and a son, right? It's kind of very meta. We can give a parable that demonstrates this. It's like a son, right? It's like a son of a king who became filled with pride in his heart and took a sword and rose up to try and cut his father. Right? He rose up to try and vanichotech, to cut him. So Amar lo padgogo shel, he said, and his the tutor said to him, in the pedagogue is the name of the tutor, don't trouble yourself, leave it to me and I'll cut him for you. The king saw the tutor and said to him, I know that what your intention was, that you believed it better that the sin should be upon you than upon your son. My son, as you live, you shall not leave my palace, and that which remains over my table, you shall eat it, and you will receive 24 gifts. Right? This is Aaron, right? He becomes the high priest. The Aaron, Ahavta tzedek, you love righteousness. Ahavta l'tzadeket banai, saneta milchayvan. You loved righteousness. You loved to try to find a way to protect my son, to be righteous to my son. Right? You're going to be the one who justifies them, and I will anoint you as the Kohen Gadol. And in this read, right, what is this read? This is the third read is very much of a piece, right? So this is what we said earlier, that Aaron is like that, right? He comes to the son, he says, let it be on me, don't try to hurt your father, let me be the one to do it. So in this read, Aaron is guilty. He's not waiting for Moshe. In this read, Aaron is fully taking on the role of the sin of the Jewish people, and it's not, what does this Midrash do with the fact that there are still 3,000 of them that are guilty, right? And it's not purely Aaron who takes it on himself. And also, what does it do with the fact that Aaron isn't really punished? So I guess he's not punished because the father here understands, right? Understands what his intention was. Okay, let's open this up a little bit, and then we'll get to a few more texts. Paul, go ahead.
I find myself, as I frequently do, irritated with the rabbis because I feel as though they are avoiding the central issue here, which is the agency of God. This entire episode must have been not only foreseen by God, but orchestrated by God. But then the question becomes why? Why would the divine wish to orchestrate such a crazy series of events as what we are reading about? And I don't know. But one supposition is that what the divine is struggling with, which is what the divine has always been struggling with, is that man has two natures. God created, as Rabbi Soloveitchik described, he created man twice with two different natures, one of acquisitiveness and one of covenant. How does the divine manage those two fundamental natures of humanity? So this whole thing is designed to manage these irreconcilable forces. That's it.
Yeah, I don't think this is the only read of the rabbis. The rabbis, there's no shortage in rabbinic literature of blame on the Jewish people or blame for their waywardness, and it becomes very much an example of these two natures that humans are imbued with, the sublime and the banal, that which seeks transcendence, and that which replaces it with, with substitutes. The sugar of God and the stevia of idolatry, or whatever you want, or the sweet and low, and there's no shortage here, and I think there's also it's also the impulse amongst the rabbis and amongst the rabbinic literature is also to judge the Jewish people favorably as often as possible, and I think that the full shock of the golden calf and the incredulity of the rabbis, and then their their intense contortion-esque, mind yoga to try to figure out a way that this wasn't fully as bad as it would seem in the text, is itself an expression of the shock of the golden calf story, which of course is the intention of the biblical narrator or editor, is to place this story in such close proximity to the Mount Sinai in order to highlight that human beings are, definitionally, we can do really horrible things really quickly, and that we can surprise even ourselves with the levels of debasement that we can, or the fall from grace. And the God figure here is also problematic, of course, because God, I'm not sure exactly what God's done wrong here per se, but I think that there's certainly, the fact that God has an anger issue and so on, and God's willing to destroy the people, I don't think that's a God story as much as a Moshe story, that we're trying to showcase Moshe, what a leader should do when the people have fallen, is to find a way to defend them as best as he can, and to stand in and to not think of his own needs. But I agree with you. There's certainly, human beings. There's no way out of how horrible the story is, and yet the horror of the story is only surpassed by the beneficence and the compassion of God, who was willing to forgive and give them a second chance. And that becomes the ultimate story of tshuva and repentance. And so all of this is like a setup for the 13 attributes of divine compassion and mercy and justice that are then employed by the rabbis. So all of this is a setup for that in some way. And for all of Jewish history, right, every single Yom Kippur is essentially a reenactment of this. We built golden calves during the year, and we're here asking for you to give us another year to try to make good on it, without having to drink the golden smoothie. Okay, anybody else? Paul, good.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So all of these excuses or justifications for Aaron, they strike me as being very much in tension with the way that other stories from the Jewish tradition deal with forced idolatry or forced bowing down to kings or whatever it is. It's sort of a weird consequentialist thing that's happening that I thought that our tradition in certain very extreme circumstances rejects. So is the idea that these might be explanations, but and maybe it's very early in the tradition, so Aaron couldn't know that there are some very red lines, or did the tradition evolve beyond this to a point where this sort of justification just wouldn't be viewed as acceptable later on?
Well, you'll see in a second that because of those consequentialist traditions later on, they must read this back with extenuating circumstances. And by the way, no one says that they weren't guilty of or deserving of a punishment, right? There's a punishment here, but to some extent, depending on whom you're speaking with, Aaron is in the readings where Aaron is not guilty. He's also there's merit given to him for having avoided the grave sin of idolatry. In other words, there is no full-on grave sin, or his intention was to try to create the framing where there would not be that grave sin committed by the Jewish people, but nonetheless, he wasn't fully successful.
Because it's like a festival.
Because it was a festival to God. So you'll see this in a second. So like that's the Ramban. Nachmanides, basically the next text here on page 7 is from the great Nachmanides, right? Who writes, this verse also will teach you that they had no intention of worshiping it as an idol. For there's no fool in the world who would think that this gold which was in their ears is that which brought them out of the land of Egypt, right? Rather, they said that the power of that figure brought them out of Egypt, brought them up out of there. Thus, you'll find that in no place does it say of the calf which brought us out of Egypt. They acknowledged God, who said, "I am the eternal, right, who brought you out." It says He'elucha, that they were lifted up. But it was right that it was by this great name that He delivered them from there. Instead, they said in many places, "Who brought you up?" For they took it to be in place of the great hand that dried up, right? They imagined that this golden calf was like a power, amongst other things, but not the ultimate source of power. So Nachmanides wants to read, right, the Jewish people's intention here. If Aaron's intention is to delay, the Jewish people's intention is to find another intermediary like Moses. They were like, oh, Moses was the one who brought us out, but now this calf will be in place of Moses. Yelech lefanenu will go in front of us the way that Moshe was going in front of us. And so in Nachmanides' reading of this, right, they do not transgress the prohibition they do not transgress in their initial intent to build an idol and worship it and say, this is the thing that took us out. God took us out, right? But what happened is essentially, instead, that they said in many places, who brought us up, right? It's with this intention that Scripture says, thus they exchanged their glory for the likeness of an ox that eats grass, later on in Deuteronomy. They exchanged their glory, and they forgot God who delivered them, who had done great things. They forgot His word which He commanded them. And thus they transgressed the prohibition, thou shalt have no other gods before me. And you'll understand this. Don't have any other gods before me. It doesn't mean that they worshipped it, as it were, as a god, but they were guilty of allowing there to be another power in their mind that was like plus God. This plus God is what made it possible to leave Egypt. Now, I brought another series of sources from the Zohar, a lot of them, which is in the 13th century, also goes even further than this, right? And actually imagines a different dimension. I'm sorry. Let me stop there. Okay. Let me hear some more voices before I go to the next thing. Yeah, Wendy. And then Asha Chaim.
Okay. At this point, Moshe and Aaron really have zero relationship because for the last 80 years they were separated. 40 years when Moses was in the palace and 40 years when he was in Midian. So the relationship between Aaron and Moses is a new relationship. It's not like children who were raised together or whatever. And their relationship begins at this point for the next 40 years. In my opinion, God never really forgives Aaron for doing this. And there's a few things that shows this. Number one, going forward in the Torah, when God speaks to Moses, or He always speaks, He'll never speak to Aaron. 90% of the time in the Torah it says Aaron and his sons. Aaron and his sons. It never, as if like He doesn't trust Aaron to delineate this information to his children. It always says, Moses, give this to Aaron and his sons, most of the time. And I feel that being in perpetual service in the tent of meetings and the two Beit HaMikdash for like 1,300 years, they were, that was tshuva for Aaron's deed,
Okay.
and in his in perpetuity tshuva for the next 1,300 years.
Yeah, so let's talk about the response to Aaron. So there are many sources that see that the death of Aaron's two children is related to this, believe it or not. there is, of course, the tradition that the reason why Aaron that in general, why the Jewish people and Aaron in particular on Yom Kippur has to bring certain animals. One of them, of course, is connected to the golden calf in the tradition. That we're to bring it, we bring, a bakar, we bring like an animal from the herd in order to clean up the mess, right? We bring like the mother is brought instead of the child. The egel is a young calf, so the calf may poop, and now the mother has to come and clean it up. So the rabbis, right? So we have in a Yom Kippur service, we have to bring adult cow, and so there are a lot of references to this remnant of the golden calf story. Whether or not Aaron was ever fully forgiven by God, it's a good question. I think that there's certainly, again, I said the rabbinic sources see a lot of Aaron's guilt and the punishment happening over generations. I think just like before I open it up to Asher Chaim, I just want to say for a moment, just like to drop back, we might not get to the Zohar and we're going to run about 10 minutes late, but the story about the leadership, the failure of leadership here, but also like imagining ourselves in Aaron's position, or even imagining ourselves in the Israelites' position as readers of the text now, the anxiety of the people, their willingness to place something that is anything to ameliorate their anxiety, anything to ameliorate their sense of uncertainty, anything to give them solidity at a time of deep uncertainty and instability, is not like it's not an ancient story. Like followers who become wholly dependent upon a leader and then the leader is no longer there, like the destabilizing of the Iranian regime, like you hear that in the news now, like what the leadership vacuum, what will happen in its place. You hear that all, in many places. We see, right, the cult of leadership, or when Moshe is, absent and the people kind of dissemble, and the lesson that's taken from this. Like the lesson could have been something like, after this scene, never again be as dependent on that leader as you were, because you're opening yourself up to kind of disempowerment, and then, right, totalitarianism and other things I spoke about on Yom Kippur, right? On Rosh Hashanah, the roots of addiction can often be found in the vacuum and the inability to stay in that uncertainty, the anxiety that it produces and provokes. And like that's another really salient message out of this. And again, also compassion for someone like Aaron, like what would we do in that situation? There's a mob coming up around us, right? And so, as you said beautifully before, that the later tradition wants to imagine people who don't fold under that whose moral compass is so secure and so clear in their own self-protective mechanism, right? But we see people who are self-protective all the time, and sometimes in a good way, maybe we can have compassion for them, and sometimes we should be judging them. Like maybe this is like a source of like, to watch this spineless Congress, refuse to make decisions, and they all fall in line because of their job security, or all politicians to some degree, who have egos, who are, I'll fall in line. Like, watching Gavin Newsom cave to the extreme left this week made me nauseous. Right, like for him to start, or Tucker Carlson, like a horseshoe. Like, it's sickening to watch the degrees to which leadership are willing to lie or dissemble or make excuses for themselves. In the green room, they say one thing, and then they're in front of the cameras, they say another thing. Like, I'm just doing this because I have a goal. Like, I'm going to rein them in. Like, you heard that. We heard people who were talking about. I mean, again, without being overly, I'm not taking a side here with anything. It's the shul. We're not. But like, when Trump was first elected, and people who were concerned about Trump would say like, oh, we have adults in the room that can contain him and restrain him, or I stayed in the administration order to lead it this way, or even with with Biden, well, we stayed. Our intention was good, and Aaron is like, they're coming to me. I'm going to try to make it work. Let me try to figure this out. And how much of that was his own self-preservational instinct, and how much of it was actually strategic, is what they're grappling with, and I love that they're grappling with that. Okay, Asher Chaim, Rabbeinu. No, Wendy, I'm sorry. Asher Chaim is waiting. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, and then okay, Asher Chaim.
Sorry, I had trouble turning on my audio. I'd like to respectfully differ with Paul on the question of whether God indeed plans these train wrecks. I believe that God did not plan for Cain to murder Abel. I believe that God did not plan for the people to build a golden calf. But, that's a whole separate rabbit hole. With regard to Aaron, I would disagree with Wendy In the biblical text, Aaron is punished for the one thing he doesn't do, which is strike the rock. He's not punished for the golden calf. And that may lead the rabbis to scratch their heads and wonder, why would God exonerate Aaron? And that leads them to many, many answers that you've been teaching us, Rav, about how the rabbis twist and turn to try to exonerate Aaron, and eventually to set him up as part of a leadership team with Moshe. I heard a great drash this week about Moshe, Aharon, and Hur being a triumvirate, each of them with different values and priorities. And the Talmud, the Mishnah, will make Moshe Mr. Law and Order and make Aaron Mr. Reconciliation based on his willing to play with trying to accommodate the people rather than standing up against them at this golden calf moment. The notion of Moshe, of Aaron as peacemaker, I believe is entirely post-biblical, based on this desire to explain why God would want to keep Aaron in a leadership position despite the events of the Egel.
Right. So Ashkan, thank you. First of all, it's nice to have a little disagreement with Baby Josh, as we all know. Like the story of Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan, these two famous rabbis in the Talmud, and they would fight about every single thing. And when one of them died, the other one, got a new study partner who agreed with everything that Rabbi Yochanan said. And he said, "I miss my old study partner, who would fight with me on every moment because it's so boring." And so it's good to have some disagreement with Baby Josh. I'll add that Aaron's role, though, as a peacemaker is in other places too. Aaron is the one who stands in the breach when there's a magif and when there's a plague, and he's the one. Right? There's more of Aaron as peacemaker than just this moment, and certainly I'm not altogether sure in the text that he's a peacemaker. Certainly, Joyce, if you could mute yourself, we're hearing a lot of Fort Lauderdale here. But I love that you're right, that Aaron's later rabbinic frame and the fact that Aaron is not punished explicitly is certainly, it's jaw-dropping. The rabbis are working from that backwards. But there's also the case that the rabbis do actually say that Aaron is punished, even though it's not explicit in the text. Just as they find implicit justification, they also find implicit punishment for Aaron as well in the text. But agreed across the board. I think that I just want to say also that since you're lodging a complaint with Paul, I'm going to double down and say that I also disagree with Paul as well. Since anybody can lob on Paul right now, Paul, it's not God's fault. God's not always, not always. I'm a big it's God's fault guy, but the text doesn't always. It's not always God. The text is a pedagogical tool. It wants to teach us something. Cain and Abel is not only because God turned towards. It's not always justified to say that in response to Dad, I went and decided to kill somebody. That might be a current justification for action, but the Torah wants to say, you might have been hurt and rejected by God, but going and taking it on your brother is not the answer. So thank you very much, right? When we see in the New York Times reporting that the current mayor's wife tweeted in support of October 7th massacres, and then they frame it in the New York Times as groups are up in arms about Palestinian support of the First Lady of New York. It's really? You didn't have to like the post that showed Palestinians come from Gaza entering into and saying, well, resistance by any means, occupation will breed this. We don't believe in that argument. It was bad, and if it was bad, then you had other means at your disposal than coming in and raiding, southern Israel. So, I'm not a big blaming God for all of these things person in that regard. But Paul, you don't get to say anything again. I have the last word. Because Jeffrey's waiting, Paul. Jeffrey's been waiting.
Yeah. So I'm a little curious why this is Nachmanides.
Nachmanides. I didn't put it so the Ramban. Yeah.
When he says they had no intention of worshiping his idol, there's no fool in the world who would think that gold in here. But billions of people throughout history believe
worship gold.
Idols, well, not even worship gold as in money, but when
I mean
everyone creates an idol,
yeah,
everyone knows it's made of stone or
right.
metal. So that is the nature of the human being, is to
Right.
is to create something and then worship it. So like, and maybe the lesson, like there's like a double lesson here, which is, of course, you don't worship a thing, but you also don't like put all your eggs in a person. It's like you don't.
Right, that's what, right.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't need
Like, be
a person
careful.
to mediate yourself
Right.
to God. Like, isn't the lesson that every Israelite,
It's-
all of us, has a direct path to God? So whether the leader is gone or whether the idol is broken, it doesn't matter because we have that direct connection to God. Like, that's the main lesson.
That's certainly one of the main lessons
Yeah, a lesson.
of this, which is that you know, the text is also, the text of the Torah is very attuned to the vulnerability of the Jewish people. But I think what rabbis like Nachmanides and others were struggling with, which is, how is it possible